rugby. It's like religion in Limerick.
There's a gladiatorial connotation to it. It's a substitute for war.
Munster is home.
You know, it still brings a tear to their eye when they put the jersey on and
walk out into that pitch and the crowd get behind you, the hair stand on your neck.
The noise is fantastic.
This game is no different than a family or a life.
There are times when, you know, your career might be over and you might have no job next year. And I remember running out for Munster in Ravenhill and thinking, if I don't play well here, I'm finished.
Whenever you put on the jersey and walk out into that pitch and the crowd get behind you, the hair stand on your neck, and I think it's a very special place to be.
Munster is home, so that's when you're putting on the red jersey. That's you're representing your home and you're representing the people closest to you, your family and your friends around you.
The anticipation and the atmosphere there really lifts you and it's almost like a cloud underneath your feet, carrying you along.
There's a huge respect for things that have gone before you, and it's hard to take for granted. You see guys that have been there 10, 12 years and it still brings a tear to their eye when they put their jersey on and line up to turn out.
Thomond Park is when, it was maybe open to only about 12,000 people. The atmosphere was still unbelievable.
Running out, you look across to the west stand and you kind of know as you're coming out the tunnel what type of atmosphere you're going to be in.
I've actually played for Shannon since under 10s, something my father had always wanted me to do. And I just remember my first training session underage there on a muddy back pitch in the old Thomond Park. I've played rugby since for the last 18 years basically. It's something that's been involved with my family right through, particularly from my father's side of things.
Well, I had an uncle who played, I had a cousin who played, and so from my point of view, it was probably easier to play the game or get into the game because of connection with my uncles and my cousins and things like that, Paddy Reid, Brendan O'Brien, and going back.
My father played with Shannon and that was his club, and it's kind of handed down to you that that's your club and that's the way it used to be, and that tradition to a certain amount has remained pretty strong around Limerick. Axel's
father wouldn't have any connection with rugby in that respect, and he came in, so it was harder from somebody like him. So I have the height of respect from people like that who come into a game who haven't had a cushion coming into it.
He obviously had a love affair with rugby, and something that was passed down to myself and my two sisters, and that's obviously the way it works.
I went to art school Reach, so rugby was kind of big then. So I went to school and I played 14s junior cup, and that it kind of took off from there of family involved in Old Crescent.
Went on to play with Shannon and lucky enough to play at my province and my country at underage level a number of times, and had a bad car crash then when I was about 26 or 7 to kind of finish my playing.
Well, I'm afraid it wasn't the most traditional of routes into rugby in Limerick City. My dad is from Donegal and played minor and senior Gaelic football with Donegal.
I played soccer. I used to refuse to play rugby at home. I don't know, at home, it was always a big thing in my house, but for some reason I never really wanted to play. I remember my little brother still jokes with me now that when we went up to Old Crescent, like as under 10s, whatever, he might have been 6 or 7. He was going out playing with them, and I was refusing to sit in the car, you know.
So my older brother Brian was the first Toland to be in Old Crescent, and then 3 years later I joined.
I was about 11, and my brother Richard and Henry were actually playing for the club at the time. They had a good underage system there, and I went along and really enjoyed it.
My dad was president of presentation on Redshore, so he brought me out and I started playing with them, with all of my father's mates, all their sons. They were all brought out there, so we all played underage there up until about 13.
My father was a big Gary Eoin man. He used to bring me to the games, and all the senior players playing on those teams, like the likes of Keith Wood and Dan Larkin, Ian Barry, all excellent players with Gary Eoin growing up through I think it was the early 90s or so. They would have been my, I suppose, heroes.
I think coming from in the underage level, they expected that, I suppose, a hero of sorts had gone before me, so I'm to fill his footsteps. Just, I suppose, I've played for Munster once, and I'm happy to have worn the jersey.
He is playing well at the moment. Yeah, he's playing well at the moment. And earlier on, he broke a collarbone earlier on, and he broke something else, and then he went out of the country for a while. And so it just didn't happen. These things, you know, these things happen. I think he's okay. He's my son. I have a lot of time for him.
I think I've often joked that if I scored, a try over my own goal line, he'd find something positive out of it. You know, he's always been very, very supportive, and as have all my brothers and my mother at home. You know, I've been lucky in that. You know, they've he's always been really good. Like, he would have had me out throwing balls around when I was younger with one hand and that kind of stuff, but not in a kind of get out there and play. Like, he left me do whatever I want. Really, really did. You know.
They're rarely criticised, thank God. I suppose there's enough people doing that. But, you know, they will give me a bit of help, or they will usually talk to me in a positive sense. And, you know, I really am appreciative of that, because, as I said, growing up, they were my heroes.
From a Limerick point of view, a lot of the guys in the game traditionally came from a working class. The fact that they were seemingly harder because they were physical workers. They worked in the docks, they worked in the building. That has been replaced now by the gyms and the fitness instructors and all that type of thing. But Limerick was the third most important port to the British Empire at one stage. So there was a huge English influence here, and rugby was one of the biggest influences, and they left that to us. So the guys, rather than revolt against it, played the game.
Limerick City is unique in a sporting sense because it has, well, for example, I played every sport growing up, every field sport available to me: soccer, hurling, rugby, Gaelic football, any field game at all, and all kids in all the communities tend to do that, which is unique in a way, certainly different from what a rugby player in Dublin might be coming through.
When I moved from Connacht to Munster, it was a massive culture shock in terms of walking the streets, and people have all the gear and the support that we get. My first year here, we won the Heineken Cup in Cardiff, and the amount of travelling support, not only at the final, but the weeks leading up in semi-finals, quarter-finals, other Heineken Cup matches. It's immense.
One of the working class clubs in the city of Limerick, and kind of an underdog kind of club that have always done very well, and it's hard to say how I describe it really. Obviously I'm very proud of the club.
My dad, both my older brothers, myself and my younger brother all played for Crescent, you know, and so just growing up supporting them would have been the big thing. Witnessed some very big occasions there that obviously, you know, I still remember, and they were great to watch my brothers playing in those games.
And having come to Old Crescent, you're set in an identity straight away. When you put that jersey on, even at under 12s, I remember when I played against Gary Eoin, or played against Thomond, or played against St Mary's, I always felt they were different from me because they were in a different jersey.
I would see it as it's a very progressive club. They have an academy there, which is one of the first club academies in Ireland, and they spent a lot of money on developing that, and a lot of time and a lot of effort went into it. They have a 3G pitch there, which is they're very progressive in that sense, and they're getting the best they can for the players and for the club.
In my time in Shannon, that we had a very strong core of quality players, and we weren't all Limerick lads. We came from all around Tipperary, Clare, with a few down from Portlaoise and another couple from Dublin. So there was it was just an easy club for me to join and easy people to get along with.
When you eventually come into the red jersey, which is the ultimate one, you already have been given a foundation of maybe 8 years or 10 years getting to that.
I think I was maybe 20, and I ended up having a contract, and it was just amazing at the time. You were getting a car and you were getting money, and it was all a bit too easy, I think. And it took me a couple of years to actually attune to the life of being a professional.
When professionals came in '95, we were about as amateur as you possibly could be.
Certainly times have changed a lot, and the attitude to rugby and being professional in rugby has really changed, and it did take maybe 5-6 years for it to settle down and people to know what works, what doesn't work.
And that's a key difference now between kids coming out at 15, 16, 17. If their ambition is to play pro rugby, they understand that there is a massive set of sacrifices that need to be made in order to achieve that, and that's under the professional banner.
You'll often hear people talking about all the skills involved in rugby, like kicking, passing, tackling. Like, I do believe genuinely that rolling with the punches a little bit is a huge skill as well. Hanging in there is a skill even, because sometimes that's what you have to do.
Losing the contract was a big shock to the system. I had to leave my hometown of Brisbane and go to Sydney and have a job and play club rugby, so it's certainly something that gives you a kick in the backside.
A lot of guys will drop out if they feel the competition is too good. They might have foolish expectations of making it.
You need to be in the right schools for a start, coming through the right setup at under 19, under 20 provincial level to even get a sniff of the academies or sub-academies I think there's out there at this stage. And if you're not in that bracket at that stage, you've little or no chance really.
We've got a lot of guys here who are aspiring to fulfil a full-time rugby career, and they're training. They're 19, 20, 21 years of age, and then the other side of it, there's guys who've done a bit of that, who didn't quite make it, and everyone has their different story.
You just keep applying yourself, and it's not going to come easily. That's why I suppose a lot of people end up not getting there. And you have to have a bit of luck as well. People pick up injuries are part and parcel of it, and getting setbacks. We just have to keep training hard and keep knuckling down. That's the basis of it. It's just hard work and just staying honest with your training.
In fairness to Jerry, he went the long way around it, and his drive and to become a full-time, to actually make it. You just can't give the guy enough credit, and his drive and determination he definitely does have. Mentally definitely has the drive for that.
For a long time there was getting paid for a job you do for nothing. I suppose now with the rigours of it and what's going on, the pressures, it's now suddenly turned into a job. That fellas get obviously well paid for, but they earn every cent they get.
Yeah, rugby is my job, and I take it very seriously. I'm professional about it, but I love it as well. So I'm very fortunate to be able to get paid to play something I love doing.
I would have been happy playing amateur if there was no such thing as professional rugby, obviously, yeah. But I think you want to play at the top level. Well, that's the way I would have been. So if professional rugby was there to be played, there was an opportunity to play professional rugby and to be paid to do what you love, absolutely, that's what I would have wanted to do.
It's a hard slog kind of trying to play amateur and trying to keep a professional angle on it. The amount of time you put in, especially trying to break into a side, is almost 7 days a week. You'd have a fitness on Monday, you'd have 2 sessions on a Tuesday and a Thursday. They'd ask you to do weights on a Wednesday, then you'd have maybe travelling on a Friday, or else Friday would be a rest day. You have a match day Saturday, and if you weren't involved, you'd have to play again with the seconds. So you're always struggling and always putting in a lot of commitment. So from that point of view, it's hard to be motivated and push yourself on to try and want to be professional all the time when that kind of is coming against you.
I love playing, and it's just the knocks and the bruises are getting a bit harder to get rid of, you know. Like I usually would have been a couple of years ago, it would have been okay on Sunday, Monday, but now it's taking me Monday / Tuesday to get rid of them, you know.
Touch wood, I've been lucky, you know, relative to other players. Certainly, I think you know, you look at some guys and they have very troubled careers, and you really feel for them. But I did have maybe 2 years, right, where I had a shoulder problem and I had an operation, and then I got an infection in it. So it really wiped me out kind of for 2 years. Now I came back in little bits and spurts, but you're training on your own, and you do feel very lonely and isolated, and you're not playing games, and you kind of wonder what it's all about.
Some of these marks just picked up from studs and stuff, but usually you end up healing again at the end of the day. So it's only a temporary mark, nothing too serious.
I think I've been lucky enough injury-wise. I've had a few, all right. I've had a osteitis, a groin thing, osteitis pubis, so I got that operated on. I tore 2/3 of my Achilles tendon. That was probably the worst. Besides that, I've been lucky enough, obviously a few breaks and that, but we've super physiotherapists there, Mark and John.
When the games are a bit more open, there's probably less collisions in them, you know, when the conditions are better. But when the weather can get bad and conditions slow the game down, it becomes more of a kind of a war of attrition, and it's tough. But you know, this is why we train hard, so that we can adapt to whatever conditions or whatever game is thrown at us.
Rugby in general, it's definitely going to pick up knocks and strains every season. Again, it's just important to get into physio and get into keep them under control and keep them down.
After every game, the next morning we have massages, organised one-on-one massages and recovery sessions in the pool, and rehab and resetting in the weights room.
I've never broken anything through rugby, so the worst injury I've had is probably a grade 3 tear in my right AC, which is on the opposite shoulder, and that put me out of action for about 5 months in total, let's say. And that's basically, I've been lucky, I've been blessed like that there's nothing serious has happened to me.
I haven't had any injury that has really put me out of work for any long serious amount of time or anything like that.
I could understand why fellas, you know, particularly within the current context of Ireland at the moment, that their job suddenly becomes more important than going to training on a Tuesday and Thursday and committing a weekend to a game. It's a hard thing for them to do because they obviously love sport. Family and making a bob comes first at times, and you know, you always have to have your priorities straight.
When we started out, I was working bloody almost 24 hours a day, trying to get this off the ground. But now it's steadied out a bit. We start here at 9:30 and keep going till 5:30. Luckily, I can miss some of the traffic that's involved in Limerick, so it's easier to get out here, out to the airport at about 9:30 time. Winter demand is you don't have people coming every day, but Saturdays is usually our main day. That sometimes clashes with the Saturday games that I'd have, so I'd look for a Sunday work, or else I'd have my colleague doing the work on the Saturday to show people the vans.
Well, the first year transition of playing full-time rugby, playing club rugby, it was quite hard. Just not being, just fatigue and getting back into use to it. You know, coming down, finish work at 6 and be training around 6:30, 7, ready to go, and doing that 4 or 5 nights a week. Definitely for the first 12 months I found it very difficult, just again the transition of it, but it's you get used to it.
Paul Neville has been a very, very important contributor to Irish sport. He obviously went to Crescent School as well. He played in Old Crescent initially. He then got involved in Garryowen, which is a very interesting line, and then he obviously played in Connacht for a number of years, and he's come back to Garryowen and he's been very successful in doing so. He's obviously captained Garryowen as well. He's been a leader, and Garryowen, as an example, and I've always played an excellent brand of rugby, so he's been very, very important, and it's fantastic to see a guy like that come back, because the instinct to some pros is, I've given it a lot, my body's tired, I'm sick and tired of it, but someone like Paul, I said, do you know what, there's a lot of fun to be had in this game, and he's a good example to lots of pros who, when they retire, to get back into the club and complete that circle.
I'd have friends playing the game at club level that I still, massively respect the fact that they, haven't played professional rugby, they can go back and they're still as motivated as ever, and to go on and succeed with a good club, and put their own mark on that club. I think professional players would always relate to that, and look, think very highly of people who've managed to do that.
Paul Neville's a good friend of mine. I thought he was one of the best players I've ever played with.
He's a clubman, and what he did say to me recently was that if the club don't get the same, don't go back to the same kind of competition level that was there in the AIL League, fellas like himself wouldn't learn the game, because he reckons he came into a Garryowen side who tried exceptionally hard to beat a very good Shannon side and a very good Con side when that AIL League was going well, and it made a better player of him, and consequently it made a better man of him.
Because the Munster thing has gone so big now and so commercial, it's gone huge, that the All-Ireland League has dipped a bit.
15 years ago, the AIL and playing for your club was the top level, and probably now provincially is the top level. Apart from international, playing provincially is the top level. So, certainly a little bit of the gloss has gone off the club game. There's no denying that. The crowds that were there aren't there.
Commanding audiences of about 20,000 in Garryowen, for AIL game between Con and Garryowen, and the atmosphere was brilliant. The build up to the game was immense, and everyone just wanted to be there.
I'd remember going up to Old Crescent watching guys like Brian Toland or Liam Toland would have been playing, or Stephen Toohey.
The club game would have been the pinnacle in Irish rugby at the time, and I suppose provincial rugby at the time was only kind of 4 games a year.
And the fact that the Limerick clubs were so successful at that level in the AIL League transferred its work onto the Munster team, because the Munster team wouldn't be the force it is today only for the AIL League.
The club concept, which is a competition, and winning and losing is very, very important in it, and I think there's a huge building block to take away from a young guy if you put them straight into the academies, into what would be deemed somewhat meaningless games.
I think the clubs are dying a death, and they need the support of the union, and I think it's been seen this year, especially down in Limerick direction, the volume or the number of international players that have needed rugby, and the clubs had to be there for them, and they were there for them.
I don't think that Munster has killed off the club competition. I just think that the emphasis has shifted, and I think that it's important that the structures are carefully looked at so that the club game continues to flourish, and that there isn't a drop off and the defeat, because that's where Munster are going to draw the majority of their players.
The clubs have had a very proactive structure about developing their game within the club. Then Munster came in on top of it and in a sense took all that good work but didn't replace it.
The AIL was always used before for guys to show themselves and to pursue full-time rugby, like David Wallace used to play with Garryowen, Killian Keane, Dominic Crotty, and the likes of Shannon, Hugh McGalloway, Eddie Halvey, all those guys, right? But now it seems to be a bit more where they're just using it as game time. They've got their Munster set up, and they're using it as a development to come through. It's a bit harder, to come through from that stage now.
The Munster team, again, going back, are building an academy, so they're trying to get as many guys into the Munster brand and prepare them for the professional game. And that can leave clubs aside, and certainly where the GAA have a strength is that the club is very much the building block. That's a threat.
For rugby to develop, I think you do need the strong provinces, but you also need the feeding system, which is the clubs.
And there's a lot of pulling and dragging, and a lot of players jumping ship, jumping clubs and moving on. And you have to at times you have to respect that, because they're trying to play at the highest level possible for themselves. But at times it probably dilutes the club system that used to be in the town.
You get the odd one back every here and there, but which gives you a chance to concentrate on the club players, which is where you try and bring them through. But yeah, in the space of 4 or 5 years, it changed utterly.
The players get pulled off us. It's a Thursday night. We're sitting here trying to pick a team to see, for the weekend. So to make our team for the weekend, we have to wait to see are Munster going to use these guys. So they'll use them, whatever suits them, which is the way, obviously, because that's their job.
The IRFU then have to figure out a mechanism to keep the clubs as the building block of Irish rugby, and that's a threat in that, because obviously if you're running a professional team, you want to have complete ownership and control over the future players. That's beginning to happen now at the detriment to the clubs.
Maybe there's too many teams, in Limerick, to be honest with you, to bring the levels up to where it needs to be.
I don't think so. I think there's still an awful lot of kids coming through the system. If you ask any of the underage coaches, there's buckets of kids playing. So there's enough kids to play.
Give them the supporting structures, give them the coaching structures, give them the funding, to get the players in and to build decent squads and to work hard. At the moment, it's back to the club to try and do everything. Just the money isn't there anymore for the clubs to bring players through.
A good idea maybe to go back to just maybe a Munster Senior League, and trying to get maybe the way it's based in Australia, where you'd have Shannon would travel on to Cork on a Saturday, and it'd start off with Shannon thirds playing, then Shannon seconds, Shannon 20s and Shannon's firsts would all play on the same day against Con.
You can't do that because of the pitches just don't take that kind of punishment, particularly during the winter months. Obviously it becomes a very sociable day and a very enjoyable day for players and supporters and family to hang around then for the day. If you play a match at 9-10 in the morning, you hang around for the day till the big game at 2 or 3 o'clock. But obviously weather and that as well is a hard thing here.
I do believe that maybe an amateur union running in tandem with the international one would be more beneficial to the clubs, saying to the heart of the game. So the game will be a better game if both the professional game and the amateur game respect each other equally, rather than one telling the other what to do.
As the game developed and as the game got more popular, the more newspapers, TV, press got a hold of it and blew it out of proportion, so people would actually recognise who and what you were and whatever, and they would make comments. But in the early days, it wouldn't be a case of that, because you were lucky if a game made TV. But now it's all over the place.
People do, I suppose, notice you more when you're out or when you're in town or in the street. And I think it goes hand in hand with being a professional, being a role model, and you're just making the right decisions, the right choices, and you can't be out every night or drinking or things like that.
You don't mind being asked autographs, but sometimes it can get a little bit irritating. And most of the time it's great, It's just sometimes you get people up giving you their opinions, especially when you're out with family and friends. It can be a bit annoying.
I say for some of them it is hard. Some of the people who, the media want a lot of attention from, and sponsors want a lot of attention from.
The amount of publicity they've got has been immense, by any standards, worldwide, or a worldwide brand or a worldwide name. And I'd say a lot of people who are in the professional thing, they say, listen, we've got to make hay where the sun shines.
Some guys like to get involved in businesses while they're playing, and it's something that I would like to do in the future, but for me it takes up a lot of my time. If you're doing an ad or whatever, you've one day, you get in there, you get it done and you get out.
It's obviously something that you do in that moment, purely on the grounds that if you don't do it, somebody else will, and you probably won't get a chance to do it again. So you grasp what you can when you can.
Yes, they're conscious that when they retire, the world has now changed. So these guys who retire in the mid-30s, they have to start a whole new career. So they would be silly not to somewhat maximise their earning potential while they can, because they could be very fallow times ahead.
I suppose we have a short career, and it's about making money while you're here, and it's about building contacts while you're here. So many of the guys that retire from professional sports end up struggling in a life after rugby.
Anything that they've actually reaped the benefit in professionalism, best of luck to them. They deserve it.
One of the unique aspects of it is that our sporting heroes are tangible, they're touchable. You can actually put your hand on Paul O'Connell. You can actually bump into him in this city.
Limerick is a small place, and people tend to know the lads who were playing on the Munster team at the time.
It's fantastic that the whole province buys into the brand and the team, and it's great for us, you know, to have people interested in what we do, that you know, through the generations have created that for us. It's kind of a legacy that for the short time that we get to wear the jersey, that we leave it in, you know, as good a standard as it's been in the past. And for people to come up to you on the street, yeah, it's flattering. You know, it's a sense of pride and accomplishment that you're doing a good job.
I think Irish rugby sport is more attainable to its community, is more accessible to its community than the equivalent maybe in the UK.
People give so much of their time for this team, supporting them and following them all around, that when you get a chance to play for them, that you've got to produce the goods. If you don't, people are going to come up to you and tell you. But we've been fortunate enough that since I've been playing with Munster, that our results have in general been good, you know, and people have been very supportive of us. And I suppose the measure of it is when results have gone against us, people have still rallied in behind the team, which I think is, you know, which is the essence of the Munster supporters.
A lot of people will obviously analyse this and what is the secret of Munster. I think that is one of the core aspects of the success, that you can actually bump into Jerry Flannery or you can bump into Paul O'Connell and he won't run away. He'll actually stand there and face his community as a shared group.
It's part of the job, and it's, you know, I wouldn't change my job for the world. I love what I do.
And I think what the Munster supporters give the players is that emotion and intelligence to say, look, we're right behind you, but it's a fickle crowd, we're right behind you, we want you to win and we're demanding it of you. So I think it's very, very important. It's a very special relationship that the Munster supporter has with his player.
And the respect that the fans give the players. Especially the New Zealand guys, when they first played us, that was huge for them. They just were really impressed by the supporters, how respectful they were to the other players.
It's kind of galling to meet people there that, you know, won't turn up to see the club game the following day, and I find that really hard to understand, how if they do love rugby that much, and they pay so much to go to France or wherever to watch a Munster game, that, you know, on their return back home on Saturday night after the game, whatever, that they won't take in a club game on Sunday.
The Munster supporter now isn't necessarily a club supporter. When I played for Munster back in the day, you might have had 500 people watching a Munster-Leinster game, and that was it. And those people would have come from clubs, whereas now you could have 26,000 or up to 50,000 people watching a Munster game, and they don't necessarily come through the club structure.
You know, some guys, you just have no interest in going to club games, so, you know, you have to wonder what their motive is in supporting a team, you know, like this. Is it just a follower, or is it a supporter? So, like, you know, my first allegiance is to the club always.
Anyone that's playing rugby aspires to be a professional rugby player, like a soccer player or whatever. So you don't want it to end, you want to prolong it as long as you can.
You know, are there situations in a career where you're worried about more your contract than who you're playing for? And that does happen. There are times when, you know, your career might be over and you might have no job next year. And I remember running out for Munster in Ravenhill and, you know, thinking, if I don't play well here, I'm finished. And that's a different type of pressure, you know. I actually remember driving to the Heineken Cup final and thinking, this isn't pressure. Like, I know what pressure was. Pressure was that day 4 years ago. Like, you know, those big games are just electric. You love playing them. They're enjoyable. You want to be there. You know, the pressure when it really is on is when you're worried about your livelihood. You know what I mean? And you're worried about, you know, everyone who believes in you and pushed you to this point and helped you to get to this point, and you're out there playing for one more game, and if you don't play well, you could be finished.
First and foremost, you're earning a living from playing rugby, and you have to go where you can get contracted. I don't see any reason to ever leave Munster at the moment. Munster is one of the best places you could be. I can't, you know, you're continuing to develop as a player, and you have the chance to be successful and to win things every year. And you're playing with a group of your mates, and you know there's good honesty here and there's fantastic support. So you obviously have to consider leaving if it comes to that, but I can't see any reason why you would leave unless your hand was forced.
Munster had told me, you know, the day before that they probably weren't going to have anything for me that year, you know. And I remember being very upset and on the phone to my wife now, even telling her that, you know, trying to think about what I'm going to do next year, you know. And like, it only lasts for 24 hours, you know. I hadn't even explored the chance of moving that season, and then they actually rang me, so it was really a strange coincidence. And you know, it would have been hard to leave Munster if there was something there for me as well, you know. So even though such a big club wanted me, the fact that there wasn't anything there for me in Munster kind of made my mind up for me anyway, so it almost made it easier to go, if you know what I mean. You know, I had nothing to lose. Obviously I've been lucky to be associated with some great clubs, and Moss was definitely one of them.
Say someone like Eoin Reddan, who has come out of, he played in Crescent schools, played in Old Crescent, played in Munster for a bit, went on to Connacht, went across to England, came back to Leinster. If you asked him, where did he learn his competitive spirit? Where did he learn his never say die attitude? Like, a guy like him has had a difficult journey and has come out every time. It's an extraordinary achievement.
I never moved out of Limerick all my life, so the opportunity came to go to France, and it was literally myself and Sean spoke about it, I'd say, for about a week, and literally just went over to France and met with my agent in the club and all that, and just signed, just said we'll go for it, and it was a great experience.
If we can keep producing players here who are not making the professional area, and they're good enough to be brought into some professional outfit where they could blossom, where they would get a chance to do it, you'll find that they'll go across the water.
Chase your dream wherever it'll take you. I never thought for the life of me I'd be in Ireland, where I am now, and as a young guy in Australia. So it's turned out fantastic for me with finding the love of my life, my wife, and a couple of kids. So it's been fantastic. You don't know where that journey will take you.
If you want to compete at Heineken Cup level, which is, you know, the #1 prize, I suppose, in a way for the province, you ain't going to do it without, unfortunately, 2 or 3 world-class players. Now, they're coming in on big contracts and they say they're going away, but I think we've got good value out of the John Langfords, the Rhys Ellisons, the Trevor Halsteads.
They're contributors to the game, definitely. Now, there were some people who came in who wouldn't have the same work ethic as them.
I think bringing in foreign players, you know, is something you have to be quite careful with. You know, there's going to be good players and bad players, and just recruiting carefully is important. I think specifically Doug Howlett coming in has been, you know, he's one of the top players in world rugby.
He is definitely a guy whom you could say to your son or anybody you want to look, have a look at his commitment. Have a look at his every one of us, he's not perfect by any means, but anything he does it trying to do the right thing. He's totally honest.
And to bring in a player like that is a huge coup for Munster. The almost best thing was when he came in, how quickly he bought into the culture of Munster and how quickly he assimilated into what we were doing. And he's just a really good professional. He's just hard-working and a really good guy.
You'd like to think that the younger players will pick up a certain amount that they wouldn't have picked up without meeting these guys. You'd like to think that's going to happen.
Knowledge that I can pass on, I'd be more than happy to. You know, I enjoy seeing guys improve and work at things, and the amateur game, there is a big gap between professional and amateur, especially in Ireland, and any hints or tips that I can give on to the club I'm working with. I'd be happy to. Yeah, I really enjoy it.
I was delighted to see Conrad Smith, who was one of the, in the top 2 or 3 outside centres in the world. He's a phenomenal player. He plays for the All Blacks, obviously, and he quoted recently that if he was to move out of his environment, he would love to come to Munster. And the reason why he said that was because Munster represented everything that he was connected with: passion, respect, hunger, success, all the key building blocks.
Yeah, most of them are gone after, I suppose, 3 years. So if you're working with the 18, 19, 20-year-olds, that they're ready to come through then when they're gone. Whereas the guys that are already 22 or 3, yeah, they're stopping them progressing, but obviously they feel they're not going to come through as quick as they'd like.
You have to be mindful of the knock-on effect it has to your local players. So if you take Conrad Smith as an example, well, how will that affect Keith Earl's development as an example? He's a British and Irish Lion, he's an international, and he's not making his side, so that's going to be a detriment. But I think where it's going to be more difficult for coaches is the front row. Straight away a whole new raft of Southern Hemisphere players have come in, and they're now picking up those players in the front row. That is going to be a monumental negative effect to Irish rugby, to have the first answer, the checkbook.
And I think the amateur ethic is the best method of minimising that type of thing. And I've straddled both sides of it.
If you pick any good, honest professional rugby player, they're all going to have certain aspects of their game which that they're strong on, and you can learn from everyone on that, really.
It's like learning a language or learning something else. You'll always find out something about yourself if you're learning something else from somebody else.
You feed off so much from them. You look at what they do in training and kind of say, well, that's how they're successful, and I think it motivates everyone to want to be like them. They have the right attitude and are setting the markers and the benchmark, and players are going to run behind that and try and match it.
You talk about guys like Doug Howlett and Jean de Villiers that we've signed in the last few years, but those two guys are consummate professionals, and I learnt a lot of how they work and what means a lot to be a good player from them, and I think it's a special place when your foreign players add that to what you already have in experienced internationals.
Probably from about the mid-90s back into the 60s, it hasn't changed in 30 years like it has changed every 4 months. Every 6 months it's constantly changing.
It's changed a lot. I think rugby has opened up to a huge wave of people that didn't really follow rugby. I think you always hear stories about games that were between Munster and Leinster. When I was involved in Garryowen, there was maybe only 200 or 300 people at the game, and now when you think of that nowadays, it's a far cry from the audience that you get there.
Like, I suppose it's got more professional and all that kind of stuff, and you got guys who are in 7th, 8th year of their professional career now, and they're obviously a hell of a lot stronger than they were when they started.
The players now know and understand nutrition, know and understand sleep, know and understand the quality of the game. And one of the big debates in world rugby now is the physical stature of the player. And New Zealand are slimming down slightly, Australia are slimming down slightly. Brian O'Driscoll did it a few years ago. Paul O'Connell, who's just come through a horrible injury, he's obviously bulked up, but in a way that will meet the challenges that he's going into. Yes, there's a new game, but how can we apply it to the way we want to play it? And is that going to get us through? Is that going to give us success in the world stage?
Northern Hemisphere rugby is definitely catching up, and there used to be a substantial gap in terms of talent and success, and with teams like Ireland in the last few years and France at World Cups, they're very competitive.
Rugby is up on a higher pedestal than it was, and I suppose players are more aware of that now.
And it will never be the same, but everything changes, everything evolves.
The last 10 years and a bit of success that we've had, we always look back to previous Munster teams and how they played, obviously beating the All Blacks in '78 and all the times they beat Australia as well. I was lucky to be at one of those games, and you do definitely think back and the people and the players who wore the jersey and the pride that they played with the jersey and how they filled it, and you really want to emulate that and carry it on. And I think that that's certainly still the case today, and hopefully it will be for generations to come.
It's something that I'll cherish. Playing for Munster is a special time in my life. You know, I know it's not going to last forever, unfortunately, but anyone that gets the chance just loves it.
This game is no different than a family or a life that you're living. You know, it's about fulfilling other people's needs rather than just going your own way and forgetting about everybody else.